Det skiner ei solstråle, og den treffer meg. Du kan sjå hvordan blenker i vinden, hvor jeg strekker meg. Hvem skulle vel ha trodd på det, at du skulle finne meg? Og nå som to skal bli tre, det går slik her i livet som det passer seg.
I said we have to go back to 2005. And in 2005, a good friend of mine, André Ottok, who also teaches here, became a father for the first time. Another good friend of mine, Alexander Stoud, wanted to give him a present. And they were partners in a radio commercial production company called Verdens sterkeste mann, which means the world's strongest man. So he went to a local printers and made a baby onesie. Do you know what a baby onesie is? Here in Norway we say baby body. It's a tiny garment for babies. And he printed a company name on it. And all the other dads wanted one of those. Hardly anybody was making baby clothing with attitude at that time, especially not here in Norway. So Andrea and Alexander invited me to join the project, and we started to develop the idea of making baby onesies with statements on them. If we went to a baby department store at that time, this is what you'd see. Nicely divided in two halves, one pink and one light blue. And we realized that the children's clothing business was strictly non-male. Women designed the stuff, women sold it, and women bought it. And we were thinking, where are the dads in all this? There's a lot of gender issues going on here. But babies and small children, they don't care about gender. They learn it from their parents. And apart from the genitals, baby girls and baby boys are identical. But from day on, they are dressed up in either pink or blue. Before puberty, kids naturally don't care about gender and opposite sex and all that. They learn it from their parents. So, what's going on? Going to the beach, dressing up a 2-year-old girl in a 2-piece bikini. What kind of signals are parents sending? And why do small kids need bathing suits on the beach in the first place? They don't care. It's all about the parents. Anyway, we figured out that there had to be an alternative, and we wanted to start a company with children's clothing. Made by boys, for boys, and girls with balls. Ugly Children's Clothing was born in 2006. This baby clothing thing came kind of backwards to me. Normally people start designing children's clothing after they have children. When we started this project, I was single and had no children. So, here are the proud founding partners. And just before we launched our first collection, I became a father for the first time. So, say hello to Pelle. He has been following the brand since day one, as model and test pilot. And actually as a designer. This is one of his first designs, he made it to a test collection. I have to come back to my initial question for a second. Obviously, as one who has started a company called Ugly Children's Clothing, I have got this question 1,000 times. How can you call a company ugly? Children are not ugly. Or rather, often it's not a question, it's just plain, you can't call a company Ugly Children's Clothing. So I'd just like to clarify one small but important thing. It's not that children that are ugly, it's the clothing. But I can see there's room for confusion. As you know, babies don't talk. They just lie there while friends and family are looking down on them. making undignified sounds like tiki tiki tiki. And we thought it would be cool if the babies were able to talk back in a way. So, with our first collection of statement onesies, we wanted to avoid the typical boy-girl colors, so we made them in green, brown, black, white, and as you can see, they came in these little dress bags. Pelle here is dressed in one of my favorites, not because it's rude, but because it's just the plain truth. He is the son of a motherfucker. Here's some other in the first collection. We actually even sold this onesies at Harrods and Harvey Nicks in London, but they didn't carry the ones with F words. Something really strange and kind of scary happens with so many women when they give birth. Obviously, there's a lot going on when you're pregnant and give birth, but I'm referring to this one aspect that really puzzles me. A lot of women, even some of the coolest and most relaxed I know, they tend to totally lose their sense of self-irony when it comes to their offspring. Children are not to be made fun of. I think we're tapping here into one of the last bastions of non-religious fundamentalism in the Western world. Our kids. They are not to be joked with. No children are ugly. That's not funny. I heard of women who has removed all tags and labels from our clothes, from our garments, because they don't want ugly written on their child. And I'm sorry I say women, because in my experience, men in general are a little bit more relaxed about this. They tend to not take it so personally. Even grandmothers are more laid back about this. Sorry. To begin with, we only made baby clothing, and our vision was to make children's clothing that made it more fun to be a parent. And after a couple of these collections with statements, we came up with some other ideas we wanted to check out. And this first one was, we wanted to make the knitted sweater, lusekofte, as a baby onesie. So literally translated, that became Norwegian lice sweater body. And here you have them. We were in way over our heads trying to make knitted onesies. And we realized that our logo had a real-life sibling in the angry boy, Sinnedagen. And he looked so cold, all naked in the middle of winter, so we felt committed to help him out. Some of you might recognize this milk carton. It's from around 1980, I think. And it became the inspiration for our milk collection. There's an obvious connection between milk and babies, so it felt like a good idea. And the color scheme was inspired by the different kind of dairy products and the colors attached to them. Whole milk, skimmed milk, cream, buttermilk, skimmed buttermilk, and sour cream. Then lice became Marius, and we started a long-term collaboration with Marius of Norway. I think I have to explain these pictures. We didn't make the children cry. It's just that if you try to photograph a baby in a studio, eventually they will start crying, and we just took a few more pictures before we pick them up. And it's our own and the photographer's kids. And say hello to Thelma, my second child, and also a long-time model and test pilot for us. At this time we actually had 3 brands. 3 different brands and it would get worse. We made ugly camo, so our children better could hide themselves from their parents. But we had to clean up this mess. We had all these different collections with different names, different logos, different identities. So we tried to collect all the various concepts under one brand and one identity. At least that's what we tried. And in the process, we realized that Ugly had developed to become more than a cheeky brand name and a question of aesthetics. To us, Ugly was almost a philosophy, a way to do things, a tone of voice. Ugly to us is not about not being beautiful. And in the same way as the opposite of love isn't hate, I think that the opposite of beautiful isn't ugly, but bland. To us, ugly isn't opposed to beautiful, it's opposed to bland, dull, mild, safe, mediocre, and so on. To us, ugly is about being allowed to not be perfect. Children get dirty, they break stuff, their clothes get dirty and torn, and this is how it's supposed to be. An image of a small child with perfect clean clothes, all in the right place, with an unstained face and the hair perfectly arranged, is a fake. I remember I was in a 4-year-old's birthday, and 2 of the kids, they weren't allowed to play outside with other kids, because the parents were afraid they would stain their new, beautiful suits. What's that about, right? Those clothes didn't work, and neither did those parents in that situation. So here's some images of our summer collection, milk summer collection. So to us, the concept of ugly is about being allowed to be a child and play on your own terms, creative, confident, and in control. We want to be curious, adventurous, and mischievous young rascals. So, is it okay for children to get hurt? Of course, we don't want our kids to get hurt, but what happens if we put all our efforts into avoiding scratches and bruises? Let's say that you actually manage, by protecting and sheltering, to get your offspring through childhood without ever getting hurt. Then what? Will you then have children unable to fend for themselves? I have to tell you that no animals or kids were hurt or harmed in that photo shoot. But I also have to admit I was really worried at that. You can see Pelle has murder in his look. Well, I think that you do your kids disservice if you overprotect them. Or bjørnetjeneste, as we say in Norway. That's how they look at the end of a photo shoot. And as you know, this expression comes from the tame bear who wanted to help his master getting rid of a fly, killing him with a stone in the attempt. The Danish family therapist Jesper Juhl has a question that might help sort out the flu's care and protection. It's a question parents can ask themselves, and only they can answer honest. Who am I protecting, and against what? At Ugly, we truly admire the strongly opinionated personalities of our young ones. They know what they want, and they're not afraid to tell us. To play is hard work, and working hard as a kid entitles you to good workwear. In autumn-winter of 2012, we launched our Activist collection, inspired by the hard-working men and women that through generations helped build our wonderful world by hard work and strong opinions. Classic pieces like the Islander sweater and the strong and durable rainwear worn by fishermen in generation mixed with inspiration from the kind of clothes worn by people who cared for something important, like our environment, was redesigned to fit active and hard-playing kids of our generation. We wanted to motivate them for playful protesting, saving the world one patch at a time. Children are activists by nature. We also know that the secret behind a long and fun life is a healthy mind and a healthy body. And it's a good idea to start early. I'm sure knowledge about computers and technology is great, but it doesn't help you in the long run if you aren't able to jump over the smallest obstacles or hit even the slowest opponent in dodgeball. Children need exercise, and the great thing about exercise for kids is that it has a different and much cooler name: play. So in spring of 2013, we launched our first sportswear collection, Ugly Gym. And Ugly Gym is dedicated to the gym, both the indoor version and the large outdoor version called the World. Today, perfectly healthy kids from totally normal functioning families are overweight, and it's sad. Only one generation ago, that was an anomaly. Almost 1 in 5 Norwegian kids between the age of 6 and 12 are overweight. An interesting aspect of this is that most of the parents of these kids, and we're talking about almost 70% of them, don't see their kids as overweight. So overweight is becoming the new normal. So are kids today less physical active than they used to be? That's a difficult question to answer, but the numbers tells us that the children today has the same amount of organized physical activity as before, maybe more than when we had worked, than when I was a kid. But how much unorganized activity is going on? That's hard to measure, but if we take a look at what we know, more kids are driven to and from school and practice, kids spend more time in front of screens. Parents today are more restrictive about letting their children play unsupervised outdoors. And most of the reported activity is on weekdays and in connection with after school and organized evening activities. And kids today are more overweight. So, all this considered, I think it's fair to assume that children today are less physical active than kids 1 generation ago. And it's even more fair to assume that Norwegian children of today are less engaged in non-supervised, self-initiated activities. That's what we call free play. In the summer of 2013, we wanted to do something about this. We got this idea that we wanted to open up ugly activity parks all over the country. They should be free of charge, open 24/7, and with no rules or restrictions. So we made these signs saying Ugly Gym Activity Park. We also made a downloadable PDF with templates and instructions on how to make your own franchise, your own branch. And as you probably have understood by now, the sign was it. And I have to tell you, you don't even need the sign. So here's from so we got about opening these parks. This is from the grand opening at Ekeberg in Oslo. See, we had a marching band, ribbon cutting, and other kids. And after that we started opening up branches all over the place. Sande, Stokke, Jæren, Larkholm. We actually even opened some in Sweden. Liertoppen, Harstad, Drammen, Hokksund, Tjøme, Drøbak, Tønsberg, Lillehammer, Stavanger, Oslo, Sweden again. So, is there such a thing as an ugly child? To a mother or a father, no children are ugly, which only confirms that ugly isn't an objective measure of aesthetics. I remember hearing the story about my grandmother. She saw my eldest cousin for the first time. She was visiting in a hospital, and the mother was lying there with a newborn kid in her proud arms. And my grandmother looked at this skinny, wrinkled, bluish little thing, and she burst out laughing. And my aunt cried. Well, I guess the ugly child doesn't exist. But we should be ever so grateful for the mischievous, authority-defying, dirty rascals out there, for exploring the world, challenging our minds, testing our limits, and learning us more about our surroundings, and not least about ourselves. Thank you for listening. And a big thanks to Paul Eckley, who has taken most of the pictures you have seen here.